Hello, I'm Amy Zayley with the Jerusalem Connection Red Alert Report for June 16. When do labels and leaders propel anti-Semitism? We are seeing some new twists in the uptick of anti-Semitism by many factions. And certainly we've been identifying and calling out the actions and rhetoric we see exhibited by particular groups. One such group is Black Live Matter, or BLM. Don't confuse this with the notion of race discrimination, racism, and that it exists and it is real and needs attention. We are actually criticizing the particular group known as Black Lives Matter, whose actions and rhetoric have been overtly anti-Semitic. BLM solidified that in our minds in their support for Hamas, a terrorist organization that attacked civilian populations of a sovereign state during last month's hostilities. And when one points this out, the immediate response of Black Lives Matter and their supporters is that one is racist for criticizing the BLM organization. We also see that some Muslims who are continuing to equate Israel and the U.S. or produce a moral equivalence between Hamas or terrorist groups and the democracies of Israel and the U.S., well, they are pulling their own race card out when they are called out on their actions or rhetoric. Case in point, Ilhan Omar. She was called out in a public open letter by her fellow Democrats, criticizing her for asserting a moral equivalency between Hamas and the Taliban and Israel and the United States. And her response was that her colleagues are being Islamophobic. The most ironic part about this, about Omar's tweets, is that Hamas itself criticized Omar for the comparison, as they too were insulted by it. Go figure. So when we call out anti-Semitism, we are then vilified. But please do not let that allow you to sit in silence. I will take whatever label an anti-Semite wants to stick on me to state the truth. And I am willing to state that truth with as much kindness and as much evidence as I can find. I want to see these people not so much vilified, but rather convinced in the error of their ways or even their hypocrisy. Because my ultimate goal is that people with anti-Semitic beliefs will somehow see the truth and change their trajectory, especially those who claim to be some sort of warrior for civil and human rights. Moreover, as anti-Semitism is ticking up in all corners of the world, I do not want to see the Christian community get caught up in it and fall prey to any deeper stereotypes than it already historically finds itself in. That brings me to the issue of the internal Israeli politics and elections that happened just recently. Certain outspoken Christian Zionists, particularly Mike Evans, whose contribution to the Zionist cause has been extensive, well, he has been claiming to speak for many, if not all, American Christian Zionists and evangelicals, and stating that our support is relative to who is in office in Israel. And let me reiterate what the Jerusalem Connection published just last Friday. The Jerusalem Connection, we are steadfast in our support for the state of Israel, and that includes all its inhabitants, as well as the Jewish people in Israel and worldwide. And this is based on biblical truths and not any way, shape, or form based on who is in an Israeli office. That the Israeli citizenship, all of them, Jewish, Arab, Muslim, Christian, and other, democratically elected into those positions. Just like my American patriotism does not waver based on who is in the White House, how much more is my steadfast loyalty and my commitment to a biblical stance that I hold true and clear. Comfort ye my people. I do not want the Jewish secular community to base its opinion or even its trust or mistrust in any proclamations by any given Christian leader who says he speaks for all of us. I do not want to fuel any age-old valid skepticism that many may have towards the Christian community in their support for Israel, nor do I want to see hypocrisy displayed as non-Christians see very non-Christ-like rhetoric and actions or behavior from any Christian group or leader or someone who labels themselves as such. God allows men and women to rise and fall from power for His will. We do our part along the way. We pray for leaders, whether we chose them or not, and whether we agree with them or not. We do not hold a people responsible for what their leaders may be doing. We do not believe any human government, even Israel's, is perfect and without flaw. But we still acknowledge and value God's will in the humanity and the legitimacy of the state of Israel. Stay in prayer and ever watchful. Shavua Tov, and have a great week.